Welcome back for this second video where we're taking a look at biology and ethics. In this video, we're going to take a look at evolutionary moral theory versus the Veneer Moral Theory in relationship to potential ethical and moral behavior in animals. So in order to try to understand, potential biological basis for morality and whether morality is present in other animals or just in human beings, we need to try to understand where morality came from. In reality, we can't conduct experiments to study the evolution of human morality, so we're forced into a situation where we have to speculate. We have to generate hypothesis and come up with a view as to how these social or moral traits might have originally emerged early in human history and then developed throughout time through this evolutionary process of natural selection. And again, this view of moral behavior and ethical actions is basically necessary in human society. Otherwise, society would break down, as we've described in other videos as well. So in order to understand how evolution could potentially impact this development and refinement of morality and ethics throughout human history, it's first necessary to understand how evolution works. And so evolution is going to work through a process called natural selection, in that organisms are going to pass on to their offspring the traits that they have. And within any society, we are going to have a wide variety of individuals. Those individuals are going to have a wide variety of traits, and some of those traits are going to be the result of random mutations, some of which are going to be beneficial, the majority of which are going to be detrimental or going to be lost and die out. So an example of natural selection down here in the corner, we've got precursors to the modern day giraffe out in, maybe in an African savanna. We've got trees, we've got tall giraffes, we've got short giraffes, but the leaves that they need to eat are going to be higher up in the tree. And there are going to be advantages to basically being tall. The giraffes that are tall, that have these long necks, are going to be able to feed over the leaves high in the tree. Those shorter giraffes are going to be out of luck. Those shorter giraffes are going to die off. And so the genes or the DNA or the mutations for height are going to be selected for. Those organisms that came from taller individuals are going to do better within that society. Those organisms that are descendant from these shorter giraffes are going to die out just because they're not able to survive within this environment, within this area of tall trees. And so examples of evolution then are going to be looking at sexual selection, where through reproductive success, animals are going to be better at securing mates than their rivals. And so they're going to choose those mates that are kind of practicing beneficial behaviors, that are being successful within society, that are obtaining the resources that they need. And therefore, those individuals, if we extend this metaphor a little bit, that are acting morally and are accepted in society and being supported by society would make better mates. In contrast, kin selection is taking a look at reproductive success across the animal's genetic relatives. And so that would be kind of promoting the survival of your relations, promoting survival of those individuals that are close to you. And again, the same basic idea that we're looking at a cooperation that's going to be occurring to increase the likelihood that the organisms that are produced, the offspring, the children that are being produced, are going to be successful in that next generation. So with this view of evolution then, what we can see, there are two views as to how morality developed within human beings. And we can use that to try to determine whether or not morality could exist in animals as well. Now, the first of these is going to be evolutionary moral theory. And so evolutionary moral theory is this idea that human morality and our view of ethics and what's appropriate within society is going to be the result of natural selection. It's going to be the result of those individuals very early on, kind of historically, that developed morality, that were able to interact within society in beneficial ways, are going to be more likely to survive and more likely to have offspring that are going to have those characteristics and traits for human morality. And so Charles Darwin, author and proponent of our main view of evolutionary theory, considered that only humans have the capacity to be moral organisms. Now, in contrast with the evolutionary moral theory, this idea that the moral characteristics or traits kind of developed early on, and those individuals were more successful, so their offspring, their children, would be carrying those moral traits forward and contributing to more morality within society, is the Veneer Moral Theory. And so veneer, and so if you've got a piece of furniture, a veneer may be a piece of very thin, very nice wood on the surface of your furniture, but it's not made out of all of that wood. It's not a solid piece of wood. There's kind of junk wood or plywood underneath it. And so it's made cheaply, but it looks nice. And so the Veneer Moral Theory is this idea that morality is a social creation, like we've talked about it in other views as well. But it's a social creation that humans added as they developed society, as they started collaborating and interacting with one another. And so that view then is that, basically we've got this moral veneer, this moral kind of covering around the outside, where the core is a lot of other behaviors. The core is, very bad, kind of not so good behaviors. And we've developed this veneer around these outside, this kind of thin layer of kind of appropriate behavior that allows us to be sociable, that allows us to be moral when we're interacting with other individuals. But when we're not interacting with those individuals, we don't have to resort to the veneer. We can, act kind of unsociably, inappropriately, or immorally to one another by going beyond that simple surface veneer. So if we apply these concepts of either the veneer or evolutionary explanations of altruism, what we can take a look at is biological altruism is this idea that organisms are going to be interacting with one another in a way in which they're going to be promoting benefit, promoting goodness in some way. And so biological altruism could be thought about in terms of evolution as supporting individuals so that they are better able to survive within the situation, better able to survive within the environment, better able to survive within the society or community. And therefore, then, this view of kin altruism is going to result of natural selection in that individuals are going to be working together to promote the success of the community. And so an example of this, so we've got Kilimanjaro elephants over here. Again, out in the African Sahara, or the African plains. They got a predator coming up. They basically, kind of similar to the huddle that we talked about in a previous video, the big elephants kind of ring around the old, the infirmed, and the baby elephants, and they protect them. And so they are doing an altruistic behavior. They are protecting the young and vulnerable individuals of the herd, but putting themselves at potential risk associated with it. And so when we're taking a look at this, this is going to be potentially beneficial. This is going to be beneficial because if we lose the vulnerable population, we're going to lose the infants. We don't keep the species line going forward. We don't have the youth that hopefully would be supporting the elderly later on. And so there's this basis then of, again, potentially anthropomorphizing it, but extending out this view that the stronger individuals are going to be protecting the weaker or more vulnerable individuals within this population, within this tribe. So if we look for other examples of altruism within the animal world, what we can see is that there are distinct examples of reciprocal altruism all throughout the animal community. Again, reciprocal altruism over pure altruism. Pure altruism is doing things solely for that other individual. Reciprocal altruism is, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. And so reciprocal altruism allows those individuals to interact well within community. And so an example of this, we've got these primates here picking insects, eating the insects in reality, off of one another. And so this guy's doing it to that one, this one's doing it to that one, who's doing it to that one. And so we're looking at this idea that this reciprocal altruism is going to be beneficial within the society. And evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins has argued that pure altruism would not survive because you're basically putting yourself out there, that only reciprocal altruism, and where there's this give and take, is going to be morally acceptable or morally working within an animal society. So if we extend this view and try to tie it into the concepts of science and ethics, what's left for traditional morality when we take a look at whether it fits into this biological realm? Philosophy and morality and ethics without an input from science is only going to get us so far. Morality goes beyond mere scientific facts. Morality goes beyond what we can observe and quantify and describe using our observations and senses. Science, only without the input of philosophy, morality, and ethics, we would end up with a situation where morality is grounded in naturally selected traits, in genes, the DNA that's going to be passed from parent to offspring, that's going to give rise to these social instincts. Or we've got this then potential of both philosophy and science interacting with one another in this idea that morality is going to evolve as our social environment changes. And this, to be a little bit blunt, is probably closer to what we're going to be looking at. This idea that morality is going to evolve, it's going to change, and it's going to be a little bit relativistic in that it is going to be dependent upon the community, on the social environment that is going to be present. And so there's definitely a basis for a biological basis for morality, but it's not able to explain everything. Hey, so thank you for listening to this video looking at possibly the biological origin of moral and ethical behavior. As always, if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you and have a great week.